Jeanie was born Pamela Jean Lyons, April 24, 1953 in Pomona, California. She was baptized Pamela Jean Irving, November 3, 1957. Jeanie was a beautiful and precious little girl that was full of life and joy and brought so much sunshine to the lives of her parents and grandparents. Jeanie spent her younger years in La Puente and Hacienda Heights, California. Just before she was 18 months old, Jeanie complained of boo-boos on her right foot. The boo-boos continued to move to her left foot, her ankles, her knees, and her hips. Jeanie's right foot began to turn slightly outward. Her doctor could not determine what was crippling her and causing the terrible pain. Jeanie could no longer walk unsupported and was on crutches around 3 years old. Her mother spent countless hours rubbing Jeanie's painful feet, ankles, knees, and hips to try to relieve the pain. At around 5 years old, the doctors determined she was one of 3 known cases of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, JRA, in the state of California. At the age of 5 and a few months, Jeanie was admitted to the hospital for treatment December 2, 1958, for the first of many Christmases, other holidays, and birthdays she would spend in the hospital. She usually got to go home Christmas Day, and her mother would have a birthday party for the ward she was in, with each child, including Jeanie, getting a small gift. Jeanie was immensely proud of her mother and father for thinking about the other children, some who were wards of the state and had no family. Jeanie was March of Dimes poster girl for arthritis in 1959 and 60. At the March of Dimes telethon, she had pictures taken with many of the movie, TV, and celebrity stars of the time. Jeanie was featured in an article about JRA in the San Gabriel Valley Daily Tribune on December 30th, 1959, and later was featured at an opening of a new wing at the Children's Hospital that was made possible by a large donation from Walt Disney. Jeanie said that she very much enjoyed meeting and visiting with Walt Disney. Life was not about to get any better for Jeanie anytime soon. At one point, a social worker insisted her parents make her a ward of the state. Her parents insisted that the social worker could forget about that because it was never going to happen. Jeanie's battle with JRA would continue, and she spent about 1/2 of her life in the hospital until age 14. Jeanie was around medical professionals day in and day out, year in and year out. She was a highly intelligent young lady and soon learned to communicate with professionals on their level. She was very mature and intelligent for her age. Jeanie would sometimes get to go home for a weekend. On the way back to the hospital, her parents would stop at an ice cream store, and they would have an ice cream cone just to prolong the time that she was out of the hospital for a few minutes. Jeanie took great joy in being able to help others, even at this young age. Many nights she heard children crying in the night from fear, loneliness, and pain. She spent many hours in the ward talking to other children who had no family to visit with. She was often chastised by some of the nurses for her attempts to make the children feel better. On one occasion, she was moved to a different ward by a nurse who did not like her attempts to encourage the children. Jeanie would wait for the nurse to go off shift, and then she would go in her wheelchair and wait by the door for someone to come by and open it because she was unable to open the door. Jeanie suffered an incredible amount of pain in her life. One of those times was when the doctors were taking water off her knees when she was preteen. Tears running down her cheeks, but she uttered not a sound. She totally disconnected from her body, and Jeanie says she does not remember the pain. She said that she was up in the top corner of the room watching the procedure. She learned a lot about pain management and used pain management in the form of breathing and energy for the rest of her life. At one point in Jeanie's young life, she wore a body cast day and night for about a year to try to stop the advancing JRA, and later as a teen to try to stop the double scoliosis. She was used as a test case for every new arthritis and pain medication that came out. Every treatment that was available, including gold injections and anything that was new, was tried to control or cure the terrible disease that so little was known about. Jeanie did not attend public school until the 4th grade. She had a tutor that came to her home 2 or 3 times a week when she was at home. She also attended school in the hospital. She was an outstanding student and eager to learn. Even after she started to handicap school, she was in and out of the hospital. When she was at a home, a taxi would pick her up each morning and bring her home in the afternoon. The taxi driver was wonderful to Jeanie and would lift her into the taxi, and when she came home, the driver would get her crutches out and have them ready for her when she was lifted out of the taxi. Jeanie finished the last half of her 8th grade year with honors in the hospital. Jeanie started high school in an electric wheelchair and with people her age, which is a testimonial to her dedication and determination to learn. She was very shy and said she always felt like an odd duck in high school. When she got around her peers, they were always talking about things that were so trivial, and she was talking like a doctor. She always felt best when she was helping someone with a problem. She tutored some of the athletes so they could keep their grades up and participate in sports. The JRA had done most of the damage it was going to do by the time Jeanie finished high school. Her body was, for the most part, in the shape of a wheelchair. Her hands, wrists, and fingers were twisted and bent, as well as her feet and ankles. Her joints were fused and she had extraordinary little range of motion from head to toe. The double scoliosis continued to progress. Jeanie's determination and will for independence had grown with her knowledge. Upon graduation from high school, she convinced her parents that she and an attendant should move to an apartment closer to the college. When Jeanie entered college, she was to be a psychologist or social worker. She wanted an opportunity to help people. Jeanie's dream was partially fulfilled when lots of handicapped students needed note takers. She took the class and took notes for the person even though her hands were bent and twisted. She had so much fun learning about so many different things: nursing, science, police science, law, astronomy, pharmaceutical, and sign language. She took advantage of all they had to offer. She was able to do what she liked best, help people, and she also got credit for the classes. She loved to read, she loved to learn. Jeanie became president of the Handicapped Students Cerritos College Club, where she received several awards and a lifetime membership for outstanding service. Jeanie met her future husband, Ray Esquibel, a blind student in the Handicapped Students Club. Their marriage lasted 25 years, and they remained friends with a great deal of respect for each other. Jeanie could help Ray, and Ray could help Jeanie. They both have hundreds of stories, some funny, some sad, and some about trials and tribulations, and some victories. Jeanie was a ray of sunshine on a dark, dreary day, a candle in the dark of night, the most positive person your mind can imagine. She said each day she wakes up breathing is a blessing, since she was not supposed to live to be 15. She would have been 68 today, her birthday. Jeanie often said a little pain reminds her that she is alive. She lived with pain every minute of her life. In her joints, in her hips, her knees, ankles, and feet were fused. She had some movement in her shoulders, neck, elbows, and hands. Complain is not something Jeanie knew how to do, and she appreciated everything that was done for her. From making meals to getting her a drink of water. She was never short with thank you, and one of her favorite sayings is just because I can. Life was not done testing Jeanie yet. In spite of all the pain and suffering she had endured, Jeanie had an incredible positive attitude. In just a few short seconds, her life was about to change. One of the things most important in her life would be lost for an exceptionally long time. Jeanie was in her wheelchair on the way to do some grocery shopping. The wheelchair was belt-driven and had no brakes. When she let off the joystick, the electric motor stopped the wheelchair. The sidewalk was sloped to the left toward the street and slightly downhill. The belt on the wheelchair broke and Jeanie, in her seat, rolled off the curb, crashing into the street, with Jeanie landing on her left forehead and left knee in the first lane of traffic near the gutter. An unknown man saw the accident happen and stopped to help. Jeanie was terrified that a car would run over her and kept pleading, "Move me, don't let them run over my brain." Jeanie's back was to the oncoming traffic and she could hear the cars rushing at her, but she couldn't see them. Jeanie pleaded with him to set up the wheelchair and pick her up and set her back in it because she didn't want to be run over. The man was afraid of being sued and reluctantly gave in. As soon as he accomplished her wishes, he left at her request. Jeanie had severe injuries to her head and left knee and thigh. She was in the hospital for a month. The first week, the doctors ordered parts for her thigh to put back together. On the third day, she had a grand mal seizure. When the parts came in, they were too big and had to be reordered. The doctors kept her under heavy sedation because of the extreme pain. At the end of the second week, they did the surgery to install the plate in her shattered thigh. She had 3 more seizures in the next 2 weeks before she was released. Jeanie was able to get back in her wheelchair after 4 months of bed recuperation time. She did not want to leave the house and found that to be quite odd for her. Jeanie and Ray made excuses for her not wanting to leave the house. Life had yet another test in store for Jeanie. She was having panic attacks when she tried to leave the house. The 2 things that she had counted on most had failed her, her mind and her wheelchair. She did not want to admit to her friends and family that her mind had defeated her. Jeanie started the baby steps again. She would drive her wheelchair into the garage and stay as long as she could. Her heart would start to beat fast and she couldn't catch her breath. She would turn around and go back inside her home. Later that day, or maybe the next day or the next day after that, she would try to go a little further. It took several months for her to go to the end of the block, going a few feet further each time and turn around and run back home as fast as her wheelchair would go. After about a year, she was able to go the short distance to the supermarket alone in what she described as the fastest trip she ever made to town. Along with the panic attacks, there were more baby steps. Time in Jeannie's life once again. She could no longer read. Reading had been one of her most important things in her life. Before the accident, she would sit in her wheelchair and travel around the world, go back in time and solve mysteries, all in her beloved books. Now they were just a pile of words that she could no longer put together. She could not follow the directions to make brownies. Jeanie was devastated. Her doctor put her in speech therapy, although she could speak fine. She just couldn't connect the dots when reading. This condition improved over time. She was afraid that it would never again be able to read the way she did before the accident. But with baby steps, she could read and found other things to occupy her mind and use it as a diversion for pain. Jeanie played games on the computer and listened to stories on old-time radio. Jeanie continued to improve baby steps at a time. After years, she could read and retain a little better. She did not enjoy it the way she once did. She had no problem recognizing and pronouncing the words, but it was impossible for her to read and retain as she once had. She became very frustrated. She learned from her blind husband to listen to audiobooks and enjoyed that very much. Jeanie one day, many years later, found herself being able to read a book and tell someone the story she had read. It was exceedingly difficult for her to hold a book and turn the pages because of her twisted and bent fingers. iPad to the rescue. Jeanie could download a book and with her stylus turn the pages and read for hours on end. She was so happy that her ability to read and retain had returned. Memories from the past also returned now and then. She had a sparkle in her eyes. She recalled parts of her life that had been lost. The tragic accident did not take away her intelligence or ability to reason. It only took lots of memories and the ability to read as she had previously done. When the wheelchair company settled with Jeanie, she knew this was her one chance to secure her future. She started looking for a home to buy where she would be close to doctors, medical facilities, pharmacies, food stores, and other shopping. Jeanie knew at some point in her life she might become bedridden. She did not want to be looking at a blank wall out of the window from her bed. And searched until and bought a home with a large master bedroom and a huge window overlooking a beautiful green belt with trees, a beautiful mountain view, and wildlife. Jeanie and her husband Ray lived there until their marriage ended. Jeanie continued to live there, although it was no longer a place that brought her joy and happiness, but that's another story. Jeanie and Ray had some funny stories, some sad stories, but most of all, what stands out for them as husband and wife was that they brought together what each had done best in their single life, and that was to help people. When the two of them had so little, they were always able to help family, friends, and strangers. I feel I would be doing Jeanie a great disservice by not doing my best to relate just one story that Jeanie laughed so hard about. Jeanie's parents had made her a big backpack that fit on the back of her wheelchair and hung down to the battery case below and behind the seat. Jeanie and Ray would go grocery shopping and fill the backpack as well as hanging sacks on the wheelchair. On this day, Ray was not feeling well and Jeanie was going the 6 blocks to the supermarket alone. When she got to the supermarket, she found that they had watermelon on sale. She thought how good cold watermelon would taste. Jeanie was well known in the store, and when she got to the checkout, she asked the checker if he would get her a watermelon and put it on her battery case in front of the backpack. He did, and Jeanie was on the way home with a watermelon and groceries. The sidewalk had several uneven spots where the sections met. Jeanie would take it slow over these sections because they made her wheelchair bounce and it was too rough on her back. In between sections, it was full speed ahead. In one of those full speed ahead sections, the watermelon fell off the wheelchair and rolled off the sidewalk and fell to the gutter, where it started to split open. It continued to roll to the middle of the first lane of traffic, at which time it split in half. A truck driver saw what had happened and stopped to see if he could help. The watermelon could not be saved, so Jeanie asked him to please put it in an empty grocery bag and put it in the nearby garbage so that it would not litter. Jeanie had zero tolerance for litter bugs. Jeanie just had a way of letting things roll off her back and laughed about the watermelon. I guess you just had to be there. On the other hand, knowing how much effort even small tasks were for her in being able to afford a watermelon was such a treat. I've never been able to tell this story without shedding a tear. About the time you think nothing else can happen, life will show you. Jeanie had suffered with on and off bouts of seizures ever since the wheelchair wreck, but a new type of seizure was making an appearance. With the new seizure, she did not go unconscious. She knew everything that was going on around her and feeling all the pain to go with it. In 2007, after 36 hours of on and off seizures, she agreed to go to ER. Jeanie's neurologist, who was also chief neurologist for the hospital, sent her straight to ICU. The next morning, he was doing an EEG when she began to have a seizure. He discovered it was not a seizure at all, but dystonia. Another challenge for Jeanie to overcome. For those of you who do not know, dystonia is an involuntary muscle movement disorder. It is not terminal, but it has no cure. In Jeanie's case, it was generalized, which means it covered her entire body from her scalp to the bottom of her feet. It also was extremely painful because the muscles were pulling against the seized joints. Jeanie was referred to a specialist in the field who referred her to one of his assistants. The first doctor gave her a medication that caused her much confusion. She did not know if it was AM or PM when she looked at the clock. She said she did not like this because her body had always been a wreck and now her mind was a wreck. She said to call her neurologist and get something different. The medication merry-go-round lasted for 3 years. Jeanie was given many different medications and many different combinations of those medications until a combination and dosage was found that achieved relief for her. She had no quality of life because the high dose that was required to calm the dystonia, which still came every day but was much less severe. Jeanie's neurologist gave her and I permission to adjust the medication to try to achieve a better quality of life for her. He also gave us his personal cell phone number in case we needed him. We cut the dosage in half, and she took it every 2 hours, 24/7, instead of the larger dose every 4 hours, 24/7. Jeanie was back to being Jeanie, except the dystonia still came every day, but was much milder, and with the help of 3 years physical therapy, she improved even more. At times the dystonia would be severe, but we had learned to control it, and the storms would be gone in less than half an hour. She would be very sore and require additional home physical therapy. Jeanie required 1.5 hours of home physical therapy every night before bedtime. We were incredibly grateful to the therapist that taught us how to do that. Jeanie suffered every day of her life before she was 18 months old until the day she went non-physical. But she never let the pain change her positive attitude or her will to help others. I learned more about life and living from Jeanie in the 18 years we were together 24/7 than I had in the other 60 years of my life. The only peace that I can find in her passing is she is not hurting. I know she's zooming around the universe doing what she likes to do best, and that's helping others. Zoom, zoom, baby girl. Your Theodore Bruin will love you forever.
Jeanie, July 2016 is when our hearts and souls met. We instantly became best friends, heart sisters. When you and Mr. Red told me you guys were going to make this lake your permanent home, I thought my heart would burst. Through you and Mr. Red, I've learned that true unconditional love really does exist. It's a beautiful, magical love you both share. I am so happy to have seen it in real life. We loved spending time together, long walks with the dogs, working on craft projects, caring for all our families of ducks, geese, and swans, your RV kitty, and my dogs, who also loved you instantly. I would have to have you there to trim Odin's nails. For those who don't know, Odie is a 75-pound bulldog boxer mix. He was completely calm when he heard your sweet, soothing voice. We had our tribe here, you, Barbara, Jeanie, Misty, and I. We were known as the troublemakers. We loved making our rounds, check in with everyone, whether it was snooping on Delbert, make sure his Harley was spit shine, or giving Uncle Jess a hard time about how the lawns were mowed. And Mr. Red's teasing and joking always kept us laughing. We enjoyed welcoming newcomers to the park and visiting with our seasonal RV friends. We sat for hours talking, sharing good times, sad times, or we just sat in silence, enjoying each other's energy. Our love was unconditional, family love. I have never felt with anyone. I love you, Jeanie, and I miss you more than words can express. A piece of my heart and soul went with you, and a piece of your heart and soul stays with me. As I still find comfort and encouragement in your supporting words. Baby steps, sissy, keep moving forward. I am so grateful to be loved by you. I found this quote I know you would love a lot. Love is a song, sing it. Life is a game, play it. Life is a challenge, meet it. Life is a dream, realize it. Life is love, enjoy it. Jeanie and I never liked to say goodbye to each other. It was always, see you later. See you later, sissy. I love you. On Jeanie's behalf, I want to thank you all for coming and for watching her celebration of life video.
When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey that we all must take, and each must go alone. It's all part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to home. When you are lonely and sick of heart, go to the friends we know and bury your sorrows in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go.
Our home lies dark and dim. Our kitchen and our bed. These knives they cut and shred inside my stomach.
This is where I'm sitting at the park. Unfortunately, the trees are not rustling, and it's a beautiful sound. Red is over there somewhere, getting the motorhome level and hooking everything up. But I sat under the trees and they made no noise. So I found this little spot over here. And when I did, all these leaves were rustling, the wind was blowing, and the sound was so peaceful and so serene. I found myself lost. There it is. It is good.